So we will first take a look at the teams that we guaranteed to be locks to be successful this year. And I think I had as easy of a lock as possible in the defending Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. They are 3-0 at this point. And while they do play in a relatively weak division, the AFC West, they had a very tough test this past week on Monday night in Baltimore versus the Ravens. In a typical season with fans in the stands, that probably feels like a playoff game. Nonetheless, two of the top AFC teams went off against each other, and Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City's quarterback in that game, showed his true character, throwing for nearly 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. To be a good team, you have to beat good teams. Patrick Mahomes has once again proven that he is capable of doing that. In their Week 2 affair in Los Angeles versus the Chargers, they had absolutely no business winning that game. Nonetheless, they found a way to win it in overtime on a game-winning field goal. What that says about Kansas City is that they're a good team, and good teams, no matter the opponent, always find a way to win. I don't think many people think the Chargers are a playoff team. They are a talented team, but nonetheless, that is a game that the Chiefs should have won and did win, and that is a testament to not only the talent that they have on their roster, but to their head coach and Andy Reid as well. Once again, they'll get another opportunity to prove themselves this week, similar to what they had in Baltimore last week. This coming week, they get the New England Patriots. We'll see how they can fare, but I like their chances. Another team that I guaranteed to be a lock, also at 3-0, are the Pittsburgh Steelers. And one key to the Steelers staying successful this year that I hammered on in our first video was being able to stay healthy. Ben Roethlisberger, in his return, has stayed healthy and he's flourished. He's thrown for nearly 800 yards, 7 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. For Ben, interceptions have been a problem in the past, and the fact that he's only thrown 1 through 3 games makes me feel very confident that he can still throw it around with success. He's utilized all his receiving options, whether that be Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Washington, and his tight ends, Eric Ebron and Vance McDonald. While Ebron has dealt with some drops here and there, he has proven that he's a very dependable tight end and a strong 5th option for Ben to throw to. I also take a look at their running game, something that killed them last year. James Conner and Benny Snell have staggered in who has been successful from week to week and who hasn't. James Conner didn't have a very successful week 1, and I feel like a lot of people wrote him off, but he's bounced back strong with 2 very strong performances against the Denver Broncos and the Houston Texans. So not only having a great passing game, but having a great running game as well makes me feel very confident about the direction of the Steelers' offense. And in a similar manner as the Chiefs, they have taken care of the opponents on their schedule. If you take a look back, the Steelers have defeated the New York Giants, the Denver Broncos, and the Houston Texans. All 3 teams are 0-3, so the Steelers' combined opponent record is 0-9. And looking at that on the surface, you would say the Steelers haven't had a tough schedule. And while that may be true, those games are still there to lose. And good teams, in the manner that the Chiefs have won the games, the Steelers have won those games as well. Another point that I would like to take a moment to assess is the Steelers' defense. It hasn't nearly been as prolific as it was last year, but nonetheless, they've still been very successful, and they don't have to be depended on as much. They're still a very strong defense. In the second half of this past week's performance against the Houston Texans, they allowed 0 points and just 51 total yards in the entire half. That is very strong for this team moving forward. Would you like to take a look at some of your locks?
Yeah, before I get started on my locks, I just want to say that your 2 picks, Kansas City and Pittsburgh, they're looking really good for you so far, and we'll see for the rest of the season if they can continue to be good locks for you. But I'll start with my locks now. The first lock I had was the Green Bay Packers. They are currently 3-0 right now, and to me, I consider them a very nice lock pick for me, especially since they've been able to beat 2 division teams so far in the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings. But even last week, they went on the road to take on the New Orleans Saints at the Superdome, and they were able to pull off with the victory there, though. They are tied first for the division right now with the Chicago Bears, as both those teams are 3-0 though right now. For Green Bay, what I suggest they do is to play better defense right now to continue to be a nice lock pick for me. They have given up an average of 28 points per game, but they have also scored an average of 40 points per game in the first 3 games. This shows that their offense is really explosive with their running back Aaron Jones and wide receiver Devontae Adams, and not just other key players on their team. This week, though, they play Atlanta at home, and Atlanta has given up 36 points per game this season. We will continue to see if Green Bay continues to make me look good as having them as a lock bet. Now I want to look at their quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, though, for Green Bay. Right now, throughout the first 3 weeks, he's ranked 6th in the NFL with passing yards with 887 yards, while he's also ranked 3rd in passing touchdowns with 9. The fact that he has 0 interceptions this season is good so far, knowing that Green Bay has not turned the football over as much there. And since he's not turned the football over at all throughout the first 3 games, it shows that he's a reliable quarterback as he has been for so many years. Another team that I had as my lock pick was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are currently 2-1. That some people, honestly, though, they're just not surprised that Tom Brady lost his first game against New Orleans. I mean, you think about it like this: it's his first game in a new team playing under a new system. Though not everything's going to be perfect right away, though. But what his Buccaneers have showed so far, and what Brady has showed so far, though, is that he's able to beat the teams that he's projected to beat before each week even starts, though. Like he did in weeks 2 and 3 when he defeated Carolina and Denver. Tampa Bay is going to have to continue to figure out their identity as a team, and they should beat the Chargers this week at home, then. With Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert going into Tampa Bay this week, losing his first 2 games as a starter, and then you also think about the idea that Brady's won his past 2 starts there. The Bucs should have a lot of confidence going into this game, but not take the Chargers for granted, though, as anything can happen. Luke, would you like to talk about your disappointing picks now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to get on you again in a similar manner to what I did in our first broadcast. You have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a lock. I still see them as a disappointment. They are 2-1 at this point, but in that Week 1 performance against New Orleans, they looked very, very sloppy. Whether it was Tom Brady's interceptions, fumbles on special teams, there was just very little to no cohesion for the team. And that concerns me moving forward. New Orleans is as quality of an opponent as you're going to get. And if you can't beat teams like that, you're not going to fare well in the playoffs. And I think everyone in Tampa Bay has playoff aspirations, so they need to be able to take care of those type of teams. As you mentioned, they have taken care of the bad teams on their schedule, whether that be the Carolina Panthers or the Denver Broncos. They're going to get another chance this week with the Chargers. They have to be able to win games like that before they can even think about being able to beat teams that are stronger than them, such as New Orleans. One positive I do like in Tampa Bay, I thought heading into this year they might have to rely on that veteran talent that they brought in, whether that be LaShawn McCoy, Leonard Fournette, or Rob Gronkowski. McCoy and Fournette aren't getting too many carries out of the backfield. The primary workload has been going to Ronald Jones. And in the passing game, I believe heading into Week 3, Rob Gronkowski had only been targeted 4 times. So I think that's a positive moving forward with Tampa Bay. If they can only rely on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin to be a dynamic duo, as they have, rather than depending on aging talent such as Rob Gronkowski. Another thing I mentioned with the Chiefs and Steelers, they've proven themselves against good teams. Tampa Bay will get future opportunities to prove themselves against these good teams. They have 3 home games later in the year against the Green Bay Packers, Los Angeles Rams, and the Kansas City Chiefs. All 3 are very formidable teams. If the Buccaneers can win games like that, I'll feel a lot more confident about them. But from what I've seen so far, I can't assess them as a Super Bowl contending team. All right. And another team I would like to take a look at as a disappointment are the 2-1 Baltimore Ravens. As I mentioned, they are 2-1. They've taken care of the relatively weaker teams on their schedule in the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans. But one thing that pegged them last year, and it's been a hurdle for them, is Lamar Jackson's inability to succeed come playoff time. He's lost in his first 2 seasons 2 home playoff games in the first round, showing me that maybe he's not capable of getting this team to the next step, which is a Super Bowl. He had the same opportunity that Patrick Mahomes did in Week 3, and he was part of the home team, and he just simply didn't show up against Kansas City's defense. He did run for 83 yards, which as a quarterback is great, but to only throw for 97 yards and 1 touchdown, when your quarterback counterpart is throwing for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, that's proving to me that Jackson may not be ready yet to be considered a Patrick Mahomes or a Russell Wilson. As I did mention, they did take care of the relatively weaker teams on the schedule in the Cleveland Browns and Houston Texans. But with an opportunity like the Chiefs, they failed to prove themselves yet again. They're going to get more opportunities. They do play the New England Patriots and the division rival Pittsburgh Steelers on 2 occasions. So that makes me really think if there's an opportunity for them to prove themselves that they are Super Bowl contenders, no time is like the present.
One of the teams I had as a disappointment team was the Buffalo Bills, who are currently 3-0. Josh Allen and his Bills, I got to give them credit there. I didn't think they would start out 3-0, but they somehow are, and I got to give them credit there. Think about this. They defeated the Jets in Week 1, and they even beat the Dolphins in Week 2. They're both division teams, so you got to give the Bills credit that they were able to beat the teams in their division there. But now I want to take a look at a game they had last week, though, against the Los Angeles Rams. They were winning 28-3 at halftime at home, And all of a sudden, though, they came out and played in the second half, and all of a sudden, they gave up 29 unanswered points in the second half. And you just think to yourself, like, oh my goodness, is the Buffalo Bills really about to blow this lead right now, though? But luckily, though, due to a game-winning touchdown drive led by Josh Allen, though, the Bills were able to win at the end by a score of 35-32, though. We'll see how the Bills do in the next 3 weeks as they travel to Las Vegas this week. Then they travel to Tennessee in Week 5 and take on Kansas City at home in Week 6, though. Buffalo is nice, though, starting 3-0, though, but facing 3 really good teams in the future. I'm still going to have them as a disappointment pick, though, but if they go 6-0, though, they'll really prove me wrong, though. But I'm still going to have them as a disappointment pick for right now, though. So another one of my disappointment teams I had were the San Francisco 49ers, though. Even though they don't seem like a disappointment right now, though, with the 2-1 record, though, they still kind of are a disappointment, especially when you think about how last year they won their first 8 or 9 games, so that which obviously means they won their first 3 games, and they're just currently 2-1 this season, though. Think of it like this, though. In Week 1, they played Arizona at home, though, and they lost against a division opponent, though. And you think about the last 2 weeks, that they were able to beat the Jets and Giants both at the same stadium, at MetLife Stadium, though. But another reason why I should say that the 49ers are currently disappointing me right now is because of the idea that they have multiple injuries on both sides of the ball, though, including guys like quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, tight end George Kittle, wide receiver Deebo Samuel, Tevin Coleman, Nick Bosa, defensive back Richard Sherman. The list keeps going on and on, to be honest, though. But even though they were all inactive in Week 3, though, the 49ers were still able to beat the Giants by a score of 36-9. And just because they were able to smack the Giants last week, that doesn't mean that with a not healthy roster that they're going to keep on winning games like this, though. With some of their players, though, perhaps returning Week 4, the 49ers continue to get hurt. It might affect their record for the near future, though. You need your starters to be able to get into the playoffs and to be able to make a deep postseason run, though. The 49ers, though, they do take on the Eagles at home this week, and the Eagles haven't won a game yet. They've had 2 losses and 1 tie, though. But if the 49ers are able to survive with the win and somehow control Carson Wentz in this game, that would be huge for the 49ers, especially since they would be 3-1 if they're able to win on Sunday. Now, as I said, my disappointment picks, let's take a look at our sleeper picks. Luke, would you like to say who your sleeper picks were?
Yeah, absolutely. One team, unfortunately, that I did have as a sleeper are the Houston Texans, and at this point, they are 0-3. Not here to make excuses for them, but when you play at Kansas City versus Baltimore and at Pittsburgh to start the year, you've played arguably the 3 best AFC teams, with the possible exceptions of the Buffalo Bills, the New England Patriots, and possibly the Tennessee Titans. So while their schedule has been tough, like I said, I'm not here to make excuses for them. They're 0-3. They're in the cellar of the AFC South right now. And they're going to have to start turning it around very quickly if they want to have any shot at a 3rd consecutive playoff appearance. They do have a chance to bounce back this week. They get the 0-3 Minnesota Vikings at home. I think Minnesota, similar to Houston, has been a very strong disappointment to this point for either of those teams to have not won a game after making the playoffs this past season is very strange. But look for Houston to bounce back at home. And one of the reasons I expect them to bounce back is the success of Deshaun Watson at quarterback and David Johnson at running back to this point. They've both been great. And if it weren't for these two, I really don't know where Houston's offense would be right now. It would probably be lost somewhere. Nonetheless, Deshaun Watson needs to start utilizing all 4 of his wide receivers. I talked about it in our opening video, how strong his receiving core of Will Fuller, Randall Cobb, Brandon Cooks, and Kenny Stills has been. He's made it very clear that Will Fuller is his primary target, and that's fine. Will Fuller is arguably a top 15 receiver in the league, and if he wants to throw to him on a primary basis, that's more than fine. From what I've noticed in watching Houston these first couple weeks, Randall Cobb and Kenny Stills have kind of been used at random. Neither of them, have really set themselves as a number 2 or number 3, and it's been a very random basis when they're used. So look for him to start distributing the ball more to those 2. In addition to Brandon Cooks, you trade for him in the offseason, and he's hardly touched the ball at all. I believe this past week he only had 3 catches on 5 targets. For a receiver of his pedigree, now I know he has dealt with injuries in the past. He needs to be used more for them to be successful. Don't let the record fool you, though. Their division is weaker than it appears. The Titans are 3-0. The Colts are 2-1. The Jaguars are 1-2, and the Texans are 0-3. Tennessee's a very strong team, and I expect them to make the playoffs. I don't know how long Indianapolis can last just because of Phillip Rivers and his age and his inability to throw the ball without interceptions on a consistent basis. Jacksonville does have a win, but I really don't expect them to stick around long with the lack of offensive talent they have. So while Houston does have an array of division games left, they really need to start turning it around quickly, and I think that is still a possibility. Another team I look at as a sleeper are the 2-1 Cleveland Browns. Now, after their Week 1 shellacking in Baltimore, where they lost 38-6, it would have been very easy to give up on this team, and rightfully so. A road game against a good team. If you can't win that game or even look competitive in that game, why should we consider you to be a good team? But they bounced back with 2 home wins over relatively weak opponents in the Cincinnati Bengals and the Washington football team. They'll get another prime opportunity this week on the road in Dallas versus the Cowboys to prove whether or not they might actually be a strong team. And I look for them to win this game this week against the Cowboys. The Cowboys have struggled to this point, and I really like the direction of the Browns and their offense. So look for them to steal a win in Dallas this week. One of the keys to their success, similar to the way that I mentioned James Conner and Benny Snell with the Steelers, have been the lethal running back field of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. When you're using Kareem Hunt as a third down back and he's already ran for 204 yards in just 3 games, that is a testament to how strong your running game is. And when you have Nick Chubb as your number 1 back, nearly running for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns in just 3 weeks, with the distribution of the ball like that to the point where they're getting even carries almost, and they've both been very successful. It's a very strong running back field, and I like it a lot. And with a heavy emphasis on running, that shows that they haven't passed the ball that much, and that's fine. But you have to consider that Baker still has Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham to throw to. So if they decide they want to start passing it more rather than running to get both elements incorporated into their game, he has very 2 talented receivers at his disposal. And I think that can only drive the Browns up moving forward. Would you like to take a look at some of your sleepers?
One of the teams that I had as a sleeper pick was the Washington football team, who are currently 1-2 though. Each week, Washington has given up more points prior to the previous game that they played. So obviously that's not really good right now for them though. But what I want to take a look at for Washington is their quarterback, Dwayne Haskins. Even though he did throw 3 interceptions last week against Cleveland, I look at his statistics in the first 2 games. At home against the Eagles and on the road against Arizona, and he simply just turned the football over. It's a slow progress, but Ron Rivera will continue to try and help Haskins become a better quarterback, and I think there's obviously a bright side to him. Washington is expected to lose to the Ravens this week, though, but they're still tied for first place in the NFC East with a 1-2 record. As I said earlier, if Washington can find a way to beat their division opponents, which they did in the first week at home against Philadelphia, they might be one of those below 500 division team winners that makes the playoffs. They just need to start, but they need to continue to win games, and you honestly just never know. Washington just be that team that surprises a lot of people.
All right, and quickly before we go today, we have a special guest, Don Ferro, who is here to talk about some of his NFL bets for this upcoming week. It's all the time we have for today. We thank you for watching. We hope that your favorite team has been successful so far to this point. And if not, maybe they're in the lead in the sweepstakes for next year's number 1 overall pick. Thanks for watching.
Welcome to Fade Away. My name is Dominic Ferro, and I'm here to give you the best bets that you can make this weekend. There's an absolute packed NFL slate, so let's get right into this. These are the 3 best bets that you can make this weekend. Of course, I'm not a gambler, so take everything that I say with a grain of salt. The legal age for gambling is 21. Be responsible with your gambling, and if you have a problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. I'm going to go in reverse order of my picks that I'm most confident in. These odds are from the FanDuel Sportsbook, approximately 2 o'clock Tuesday, September 29th. Starting things off, we have the Chicago Bears going against the Indianapolis Colts. The Bears are home in this match, but they are the underdogs at a 2.5 spread. For those at home who are confused about what a point spread is, it's very simple. You take the points. For the Colts in this case, they're minus 2.5. So for that bet to win, they would have to beat the Bears by at least 3 points. And as for the Bears, they are plus 2.5, meaning they could lose by 2 points or less, or they could win. For this bet, I am going with the Bears. I absolutely love the Bears in this pick because of one reason and one reason only: Nick Foles. Nick Foles is the greatest backup quarterback of all time. He's the Super Bowl MVP. He's taken over for the second overall pick, Mitch Trubisky. I mean, Mitch Trubisky, he's not the worst quarterback, but he's not a franchise quarterback, and he's certainly not Nick Foles. For this pick, you could go with the Bears plus 2.5, but you could also take them outright with the money line at plus 126, meaning if you bet $100, you would make $126. I think either or is a great pick. If you want to go with the spread, you get the points. If you just want to take the Bears, that's the best option. My next pick is the Chargers plus 7.5 while visiting Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. Listen, I think the Buccaneers are a good team, and I think they win this game. There's no doubt in my mind. What I do doubt is a 43-year-old quarterback beating a 22-year-old first-rounder by 8 points. That doesn't seem like a lot of points, but it is. The rookie quarterback from Oregon, Justin Herbert, is the real deal. He went head-to-head with the Super Bowl MVP, Patrick Mahomes, and took him to overtime, where they eventually lost. But that's not underselling anything. This guy took over in the second half for Tyrod Taylor, who went out after being punctured in his lung by the team doctor. But that's a story for another day. Listen, Justin Herbert and the Chargers may not have beat the Chiefs, but it was a valiant effort in Herbert's first NFL game. Like I said, Tampa Bay may win this game, but they aren't beating them by 8 points. Chargers plus 7.5 is the pick. And now, for my final pick of the evening, the can't-lose pick this weekend. This is the one that's going to make you a lot of money if you're of age and gamble responsibly. Here's the pick. Drum roll, please. The Seattle Seahawks minus 6.5 going against the Miami Dolphins. Listen, folks, you're going to want to bet on this one. The Seattle Seahawks are 3-0 in the year, but that's not the important part. They are 3-0 against the spread, and they're going against a pretty bad Miami Dolphins team with another old quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, I would be scared of some Fitzmagic going on, but this isn't a primetime game, so I don't expect anything from him. The Seahawks will run away with this one, hammer the Seahawks, take them hard, and that's the final pick, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in, and good luck this weekend. I'm not a gambler, so take these picks with a grain of salt. Fade away.